All righty, good morning, friends. Good morning, good morning. Thank you all so much again for attending our event on today, Black Faith Communities and HIV, and why exactly it matters. All right, so on behalf, of course, of the gathering, we invited all of you all here because we understood that not only did you all have a role, but you all also have voices that need to be in conversation with theological voices and also medical practitioner voices. So we particularly wanted to make sure that we had this event. Our goal for this event was, one, reframing harmful theological interpretations through a critical examination of biblical texts. So we began a webinar preaching series called That's Not What That Means. And in this series, we promoted a more inclusive and affirming womanist perspective that countered the stigmatization of HIV, but also LGBTQIA individuals. Two, within this event, we are wanting to increase HIV awareness, improving this awareness within the Black community in particular by providing accessible and culturally responsive education resources. But I want to be clear, we are not only holding the line, we are expanding the line. In this critical moment in 2025, we are witnessing organizations, institutions, and even some faith communities distancing themselves away from their commitments to health disparities, and particularly to Black LGBTQIA communities. It's painful, but it is real. It's also a stark reminder that now is the time that we must come together and stand even taller. We understand that engaging in this work, especially in the climate, but even more particularly within the Southern Bible Belt, it can be stigmatized, and it's not without its challenges. Many people, especially faith leaders, may oftentimes feel hesitant, perhaps even afraid, because of the pressures and the risk associated with taking a stand. We hear you. The fear and the certainty, it is valid. But let me be clear, now is not the time to be shy. We are at a pivotal moment in history, a moment that causes us all to rise, resist, and proclaim our righteous rage and holy hope in the face of relentless attacks of LGBTQIA lives. All right, and now we will go ahead and begin shortly with our medical panel.
All right, good morning. We're so glad that you are here. And those of you who joined us online, we're grateful that you're here as well. I'm here to introduce our medical panelists. First is Dr. Charmika Lipscomb. Dr. Charmika currently works as a mental health provider for Prism Health, North Texas. She obtained her bachelor's in nursing degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. After a few years of floor nursing, she thought she wanted to take on management, so she obtained a dual master's in business administration and healthcare administration from Texas Women's University. While working as an associate unit manager for Parkland's HIV outpatient services, Charmika found her first true passion, and it wasn't management, it was HIV. This passion prompted her to return to Texas Women's University to obtain a Master's of Science degree to become a family nurse practitioner. Her first job upon completing nurse practitioner school was with MetroCare Services. It was there that Charmika discovered her second love, mental health, which prompted her to get her postmaster's certification in mental health from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. She received her doctorate from Chatham University. Prior to Prism Health North Texas, Charmika was the lead HIV provider for Parkland's HIV jail services for over 5 years. HIV and mental health are passions of Charmika's because they are two of the most stigmatized disease processes in the Black community. Until they're openly discussed, ashe, the numbers will continue to grow and people will continue to suffer in silence. So let's talk about it. Can we give Dr. Charmika Lipscomb a round of applause? Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kentoria Roberson White. Her pronouns are she, her, hers. Dr. Kentoria Roberson White is a family nurse practitioner at Prism Health North Texas's South Dallas Health Center. Kentoria graduated with a BSN from Texas Tech and received her master's in nursing from the University of Texas at Houston, and she has been practicing since 2020. She holds nursing licenses in California, my home state, New York, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and of course, Texas. She is the founder of Phoenix Health Alliance, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower adolescents with comprehensive reproductive health education and resources. When she's not working, she enjoys shopping, international travel, and trying new foods. She sounds like a woman after my own heart. She lives in the Dallas area with her husband and their young daughter, Phoenix. And this is, I guess, one of your favorite quotes. She says, it's a quote from Tracy Ellis Ross. "I hope that people feel like themselves when they are around me and feel safe to be themselves when they are around me. And maybe that makes people think it's me that they love, but really, it's themselves that they love." Amen and ashe. Let's give Dr. Kentoria Roberson White a hand and welcome them to this panel.
All right, thank you ladies so much again for agreeing to be part of our medical justice panel. And again, this is a conversation, one that's not only needed, but I wanna make sure that we are using like everyday common language, because oftentimes our viewers, we don't wanna do medical injustice by a language barrier, right? All right, so the first question. According to the Dallas Observer in a 2025 article, in 2022, Dallas County had an estimated 890 new HIV infections, with a rate of 41.4 per 100,000 people. This places Dallas County within the EHE, otherwise known as Ending the HIV Epidemic Initiative. For you all, what are some of the different modes of transmission for HIV that we need to know? But then also, what are some preventative measures that you have advocated for with your patients? Either one can go. Yeah.
Alrighty, so of course when we're talking about modes of transmission, sexual intercourse, needle sharing, and of course mother to baby. And when we're referring to preventative measures, condom use, PrEP, and also just knowing your status so you can know how to protect yourself and others.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then can you explain U equals U in art? Can you explain that for us?
So U versus U speaks to undetectable is untransmittable. And when we're speaking of undetectable, when we're treating patients that are living with HIV, we have a number called our viral load. Viral load tells an HIV patient or a patient living with the HIV virus how much virus that they have in their system. What we're looking for when we take lab draws is a number that is now 50 copies or less. Tests have gotten so good that we can do 20 copies or less is undetectable. So if a test is showing 20 copies or less, you're considered undetectable. So if a patient is always undetectable, they're untransmittable. So if a patient stays less than 20 copies, their ability to transmit the disease to others is very null and void, essentially. So that's what we mean by U equals U. And when we're talking about ART, that's what we're talking antiretroviral treatment. That is the medication that is used to treat people living with HIV.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and Dr. Lipscomb, both of you can answer this question, but Dr. Lipscomb, living with HIV can significantly impact mental health, increasing the risk of conditions like depression and anxiety. The virus itself can affect the brain and the stress of living with a chronic illness, along with the potential discrimination and stigma, which can further contribute to the mental health issues. Can you expand on the need for mental health services with HIV care? Is there a need to integrate in order to improve health outcomes?
So I'll answer the first question first. The
Okay.
answer is absolutely yes. There is a need to integrate mental health into HIV services. Why? Because people living with HIV have the propensity to live or suffer from depression and anxiety at a rate to 2-3 times more than the general population. The reason for that is people with chronic disease just tend to have mental depression and anxiety at a rate of 2 to 3 times of those with than the general population, because you have to deal with a chronic illness. Also, what is very seldom talked about, the antiretrovirals that I just discussed, side effects are depression, anxiety, and insomnia. Before I came to a visit, I was on with a patient, and the patient is on Biktarvy. One of the known side effects of Biktarvy is abnormal dreams and insomnia. Well, the patient was having trouble with insomnia. So one of my recommendations was move your Biktarvy to the morning. And a lot of times the patients, the providers that are strictly dealing with the patient's HIV don't normally tell the patients, hey, when you take this medication, this may happen. When I talk to the patient and we talk about these things and I say, hey, switch the medication to the morning, normally when they come back, they'll be like, oh my God, I'm sleeping better. So yes, we do need to talk about mental health. Because I've worked on both sides, the HIV side mainly, and now I'm doing more of the mental health side, I can work through these things on both of those and look from both ways. So yes, mental health is needed on both sides. One, because the medications cause mental illness. Two, because just living with a chronic illness deals with mental illness. And because you're living with a disease process that is stigmatized, it leads to mental illness.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And did you want to speak, Dr. Robeson-White?
I do, and the importance of making sure that those services are readily available. So knowing what we know about mental health and the virus, why not make sure that you have mental health providers in the settings where you're caring for patients? So I think that's really big as well.
And one thing I did leave off. If a patient, what we often forget, that our mental health is just as important as our physical health. If a patient isn't taking care of their mental health, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to take care of themselves physically. If your physical health is failing, 9 times out of 10, your mental health is off. So we have to make sure that everything is in balance to make the person whole. And that way, they can be better for themselves in the society, so that they can take care of themselves and go to a job daily, so they can be the best version of themselves for their children or their spouse. That's what we want for our patients as a whole, to be able to take care of themselves, because a lot of times our HIV patients feel like HIV is a life sentence, so they tend to give up. But we want them to know that HIV is not a death sentence. It's a chronic disease, and you can live a normal life. You can go to work. You can have a family. You can live and be the best version, and you can still do things. If you have a business, if you have dreams, you can still do all of the things. So we want them to be whole people. So it is to have both things available, so that the patient knows that all the dreams, especially now that people are getting HIV younger, we need them to know there are still dreams that can be fulfilled if they just show up for themselves.
Yeah,
but we need to make things available to them so that they know that those dreams are available.
I have a question, Kira, for Sharmika. So in your setting as a mental health provider, as an African-American mental health provider, do you find it very challenging for patients to try to overcome the stigma of just seeing a mental health provider as an African-American person and an African-American person with HIV? I hope that was clear. So do you feel like it's an uphill battle that you're constantly fighting, like them not wanting to see you at all just because of the stigma in the African-American community?
Are you asking me, do the patients not want to see me as a provider?
No. Not want to see a provider at all.
Oh, yes. But I think, even away from just having HIV, patients in the African American community don't want to be attached with mental health. And that starts with places like these, churches. I often tell my patients, thank you, when they look like us. The reason that I tell them thank you for showing up for yourself, because you didn't have to. And I often tell them thank you because I know what it took for you to get here, because I know what you were told, because I was told the same thing. You don't show up to talk to people like me. You talk to God about it, you pray about it, and you keep it moving, right? Because God fixes all things. You don't talk about it at this house. But I also tell my patients, your brain is an organ, right?
That's right.
Just like your heart, right? And the same pastor or the deacon or your parent or your grandparent, they're not going to tell you not to take your blood pressure medicine, right? Nope. They're going to say you take the blood pressure medicine, you exercise, cut back on your salt, right?
Yes.
If they tell you you have a diabetes diagnosis, they're going to say you take your medication, you exercise, you take your insulin, and you pray about it, right? Right.
Well,
if you have cancer, they're going to say you go to chemo, you get your radiation, and you pray about it, let the pastor lay your hands on you, right?
that's right.
So when you hear your voices, you're a little sad about it, you're a little anxious about it, you talk to somebody, you take your medication, you let the Lord put your hands on you, right? Right. Your brain is an organ, just like the rest of those things. So if it's imbalanced, let somebody give you some medication. God put people like me here for a reason, and nobody has to know what's in your medicine cabinet unless you tell them. And I think when I give them that analogy, it breaks them. A lot of them just cry. But people that look like me need to realize we were born in trauma. It's in our DNA. And even if you don't want a medication, just go talk to somebody.
That's why I asked that question. I wanted her to give it to y'all.
Thank you so much. And speaking about what's in our DNA and being born in trauma, oftentimes it's theological trauma. It comes from faith communities, right? And so some misconceptions about HIV oftentimes are within the church, such as, I can get HIV by being around people who are HIV positive. I remember there was an episode from Girlfriends, and I remember that, I'm not sure what her name was, but she cut herself.
Tracy's friend.
Tracy's friend, yes. And so I remember Tracy, she hurried up and she hid the knife in her kitchen because she just didn't know. She was uneducated about it herself, right? Mosquitoes spread HIV. Oral sex is just as risky when it comes to HIV. I'm straight and I don't use IV drugs. I won't get HIV. I could tell if my partner was HIV positive. I don't need to worry about getting HIV. Drugs will keep me well. I'm HIV positive, my life is over. I'll have to take dozens of pills every day. If I'm getting treatment, I can't spread the virus. Now that I have HIV, I can't have kids. AIDS is genocide. With these misconceptions, we understand the harm, especially within the faith community. Some faith communities, let's be clear. What are some ways that you all think that we can inform our Black faith communities about HIV and clearing up these misconceptions?
I think just taking it to the churches and taking it to different settings. I feel like amongst our community, we all go to the same events. We're all talking to each other. So we all know we need to go into those different spaces that aren't coming to our events. For example, let's go into the beauty shops. Let's have these conversations. Let's go into the barbershops. Let's go into spaces where we know that people are having conversations and spreading misinformation. But then let's go into those spaces where everybody feels safe, but sometimes they don't feel safe enough to reveal them true selves and ask those questions and build that different sense of community. Yes. So I think we're doing a good job by having this event and having these conversations, but I think we need to branch out and go talk to different communities that aren't getting this information and that are informed. Because we can keep talking to each other all day, but we're still missing the mark, and the numbers are showing that we're still missing the mark. So something has to change.
Right.
Okay, I have a few things I'm gonna have to, and y'all tap me on the shoulder like we have to do at the funeral at the 2-minute mark, because I have a few things.
Take your time, we have time.
So the first thing is the church. We have to stop preaching abstinence. Period, point blank, end of the story. The only difference now than then, because Brenda was having babies back then.
That's right.
Brenda just had to get married back then. John didn't get to go get Brenda, Sarah, and Jessica pregnant because there was a shotgun wedding, right? Because my 23-year-old granddaddy got my 15-year-old grandmother pregnant, but he married her, and they were married for 72 years and did really, really well. But we had a little story. I talked about that. So we have to stop preaching abstinence because abstinence isn't happening, people.
Right.
Children are having sex.
Yes.
People are having sex. So we need to talk about it. I give this example everywhere I go. Raise your hand if you have a gun in your home. What is a gun for?
Protection.
Does that mean you're running around here shooting up people? But if you have to, you can do what? What are condoms and PrEP and birth control for?
Protection.
So if you get ready to get busy, you can do what?
Protect yourself.
There we go.
So we need to be giving our children protection.
Right.
We are also giving our children conversation. I'm not giving you permission to be giving your bodies to everybody, because there's more to sex than your bodies. There are emotions. We can take care of babies, but there's more that we can't get rid of with doxycycline and antibiotics. So we have to talk to our children, and not just about sex. We have to talk to our children about incest. So these are things that we need to be talking to our children about, but we have to be real people. Children are having sex.
Yes.
We cannot protect them because we are giving them tablets and cell phones. So what you think you are protecting them from, you are not. And the church can stop playing in our faces. We're running and giving them tithes, and they're not giving us truth. That's number one. Number two, we are having sex, and we are not keeping it simple because we are not being true to each other. You're going and saying, I can be grown, I can be polygamous, I can be polygamous, whatever all this stuff is, and nobody is talking. We're laying down and spreading our bodies here and there and everywhere, and nobody is asking for tests. Who were you with last night? Who were you with yesterday? And we are just spreading germs here, there, and everywhere. And again, nobody's having conversations. There is this lady who is a pastor's wife who I cannot believe has the audacity to be on the internet saying she ironed her husband's clothes
That just happened.
so he
Right,
could go
right.
out to be with his side piece.
That's right.
Ma'am, are you serious? What is his side piece doing? And you are saying you're still allowing him to come home and have sex with you? You will be another statistic.
That's right.
That is not okay. Again, church. The church is killing us. The church is killing us. Talk to your kids. Give them protection. Stop running to faith-based places, because there is a God,
Right.
but there's a difference between religion and spiritual. So, I digress.
Yes. Did you want to? Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comments, but I am stuck on, because I felt like it was a real thread of potential here when you talked about speaking to the parents speaking to their children. You know, I remember Annette Pearl saying to me, Perry Jr., you know what you have down there? Well, girls have a hole. That was my talk. That was my education. So I'm thinking about ways in which we can really support parents in terms of knowing how to have a conversation. I felt like that I see sometimes a willingness to engage with kids, but I don't think that we're giving parents like enough support and practice and role play on how to actually talk to kids. Like, how do you feel about that?
So that's something that I'm actually really, really passionate about, because we have to look at it twofold, right? I have to look at the parent that's giving the information to that kid and how that kid is going to receive that information. And sometimes we teach based on what we know, right? So I think as a community, we need to have conversations to where we're actually giving parents adequate and appropriate information so they can know how to give that information to their kid. But also as a parent, checking yourself and realizing I don't know everything. Maybe I am not equipped to have this conversation with my baby. So let me take them to a trusted person so I can make sure that they're getting the adequate information, and then let me circle back and talk to them so I can be informed too. So the conversation doesn't just stop there. We can continue this conversation because like we said, sex is something that we're gonna continue to have. So that doesn't need to be a one-off conversation. It's something we need to continuously have. So I think that is a great question to ask, and a lot of parents, they don't know. They're embarrassed because they don't want to teach based off of their experiences. So we just have to check ourselves and educate ourselves and know when to punt to somebody else to have that conversation.
And we need to be teaching proper terminology.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
You have a
correct. I don't like the tutus and all of those things. I teach my 2-year-old vagina.
Exactly.
So when something happens, she knows how to say, "Hey, mama, my vagina hurts," or something happened to my vagina. Because a little bit background about me, I used to work as an ER nurse at Texas Children. So there's a lot of things a kid can come in and say, like my tutu hurts. A tutu for my baby Phoenix could mean her bottom, and for your baby Maya, it could be something else. So it's like, let's teach our babies. Nothing is wrong with a kid saying penis. That goes back to what you asked me earlier. We got to check ourselves. Exactly. If you think something is wrong with someone using appropriate terminology, grow up.
Exactly.
Grow up. Because no matter if you're 2 or if you're 20, a penis is a penis and a vagina is a vagina.
But again, that goes back to our trauma. That goes back to us being held captive to being raised in nonsense and foolishness. That goes back to the keep it in the closet mentality. When I don't let my children go many places, but the whole incest and the no space, these are ongoing conversations. Like these aren't, like Kentoria just said, these aren't one-off conversations. Like we have these conversations out the blue. Who touched these spaces? The pediatrician, I love her. And that's what I wanted to add. If you're not comfortable when you take your child for their wellness, let the pediatrician have those conversations. I love my pediatrician because when she checks my children, her conversation with them is, the only reason that I'm touching you here is because your parent is here. Do I have your permission while your parent is here to examine you here? Your child needs to have those types of conversations. They need to understand our children are being exposed to too much too soon. We need to be having the conversation, people, because if we don't, the world will.
Well, it's really not a question. I'm with Dallas County Health and Human Services, and I'm with the EHE department ending the HIV epidemic. And right now, we have classes that we do teach from 13 up to 65 plus. And here's some of my class people right here sitting over there, and we talk about, there's one course that we teach which is big decisions, and it's like an hour class that we go through everything about responsibility and just knowing what's going on, and it breaks it down so that you can give me your information and then I can. You are right. Parents need to, if they're not comfortable talking to their kids about this, I've been talking to my kids since they were probably 10 years old, maybe even younger, but it's because I come from a medical background also. But we need to have parent classes, and specifically for this, to be able to teach them how to talk to their child, or maybe even bring the child with them and have that class together so they'll know how to do that. But we offer those classes at Dallas County Health and Human Services. So if you ever need any classes, especially the churches, we need to get into the churches, absolutely, because that's where the family gathers and they think everything is very safe, and it's not. But thank you, y'all are wonderful.
Thank you. And I also want to add to, we need to start holding our school districts accountable too, because our kids are there more than they're with us. So I did a survey with some of the high school students in DISD, and we are still missing the mark. For one, DISD, they're so stuck on passing the standardized test that our kids are lost. They're missing the real world experience of life and learning what they really need to in school. So in that survey, I asked kids, like, what is the most appropriate time for you to want to learn about sex, learn about your health and wellness? They said during school hours. For one, it's confidential. They know their parents aren't there. That's a safe space to where they can talk. And for two, the second question I asked was, who do you want to get that information from? They said a medical provider. So we can have a gazillion workshops and do all of these things, but if we aren't listening to what the people we are trying to reach say, we aren't going to change anything. We're still talking over their heads because they're telling us they want medical providers to give them that information and they want it during school hours. Can you name one school that's doing that right now? So that goes back to what I said earlier. We need to hold them accountable because essentially they need to be listening to what the kids are telling them too. Because then we're going to forever be having these conversations. We're not going to talk ourselves out of a job because we're not teaching the kids about it. We're catching them too late.
And they are one of the highest growing age groups of new HIV infections.
And gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. Syphilis cases among young people in the last 4 years have went up 76%.
So parents, we have to do better. Like, we cannot afford to continue to let them teach our children and say nothing.
And we have to open our eyes. Who children are being affected? Who are those cases?
Exactly.
And it's not by design.
It's not by design.
Listen, we better wake up today.
Can I piggyback on this? It's not by design. I need to give y'all an example, and I'm sorry. When she said that I worked for Dallas County, I was in the loose steroid jail. That was my job for 5 years before my current location. One of the arguments I had there was they would not test the patients that were asking for STD testing. And we know who populates the jails, right? They would not test the inmates asking for STD testing because they were asymptomatic. Asymptomatic means without symptoms. Anybody in healthcare knows you can carry an STD and be asymptomatic. Right. You know why they didn't care to test them? Because they look like who, right? And they're going back to whose community, right? My argument was, I don't give 2 sugar honey iced teas if they're asymptomatic. Y'all put the first letter of that together. I told my nurse, after we see a certain number of HIV patients, you put a couple of those STD testings on my list. It wasn't my job, but I'm gonna test them. The sad reality of them, y'all, I would bring them in and question them. How many sex partners have you had? Y'all, they would give me astronomical numbers. I'm saying 20, 50, 16. I'm talking about 18, 19, 20. And I'm saying, oh, wow. I would bring them back 24, 48 hours and say, oh, you tested positive for gonorrhea, chlamydia. And they would have the audacity to say, what's that? And I'm looking and saying, well, you're the same person that just told me 24, 48 hours ago that you had this many partners. It's not, they know what they're doing. And these are the people that are going back to our communities. And nobody's asking questions. And excuse my French, gay for the stay is a real thing. When I would evaluate men, there's a cell that you could go to, and he would tell me clear as day, I am homosexual, but I want to go to the gay tank. And I would say, well, why do you want to go to that tank? Because I can come up on commissary, and it is unnatural for a man to go that long without sex. Y'all, I cannot make this stuff up. We have got to start communicating, and we have got to do better. We cannot take this stuff for a joke. We got to start talking and be real. Your way is your way, but we have got to start communicating and being real with each other.
Thank you.
My name is Darren Brewer. I am Empowerment Manager at Prism Health North Texas, and we do, over at Prism, we do a lot of outreach, communities, supports, men's, women's group, yoga, health and holistic, fun stuff, all that. And so I deal with a lot of adults who are living with HIV and AIDS in some of those support groups, and everything you're talking about is true. Overwhelmingly, most of the women that I support have been molested by somebody that they knew. Many men have been to prison and probably are bisexual, or however but they're fluid and don't always share that. And so I'm going to go back to the church. I grew up Pentecostal holiness guy. As a gay man, in all my life, there was such shame and stigma placed on being gay. It was worse than killing somebody. And I think what happens as a black gay man is people aren't truthful. People don't seek care. People don't share. I've had many women in my support group say, I feel like I'm tainted. There's so much shame and stigma. I'm tainted. Nobody would want me. And so many women have said, you know, I met this guy I liked. We went on a date, and now we are engaging sexually. And usually they will share that they won't tell that person of their status because of the amount of shame and stigma. I think that's one of the main reasons why the whole thing with kids and people under, that's a whole thing, but I think for adults, there are so many adult black and brown folks living with HIV who are weighted with trauma and shame and stigma, which I think without support or medical care, they tend to continue to act out drugs, sex, you name it. So I just like to have you ladies speak on stigma and shame and how impactful that is.
That's the thing, and who did the introduction? And that's how it ends, and it's just the truth, and I don't know how to turn it, unless we talk about it, I really don't know how we change it. And I do think it starts with the church, because that's the cornerstone of most black communities. And then two, they are more receiving and open, and stop using the Bible to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
We're really stuck, right? And I understand, but it really isn't a person's place to put us in a heaven or a hell, right? Give a word and let God decide. You don't have to agree. You don't have to like my lifestyle, but let God decide. Love people. What people do is what people do. Let God decide. Until we change that, we are in trouble, because all of the things we see on earth, God did discuss in the Bible. He discussed it. But when men try to put one being worse than the other, and we're pitting each other against each other, it just makes all things worse. And I just think the church, until the church changes the tide, I don't know if the stigma will ever go away. The church has to change. Either we need to stop being so churchy, or the stigma doesn't change, because the church is a cornerstone of the black community. It has forever been that way.
And I think just tackling the beast of stigma, So let's use this in a different sense, right? For example, chlamydia. Let's just throw chlamydia. Or let's say herpes. Let's throw herpes out there. When you throw stigma on top of something, it already creates a divide. So I'm not gonna say normalize, but that's the only word that I could think of right now. Like, let's normalize it. Let's stop saying, okay, only this person can get it, this person can get it. Once we stop doing that, that's when we can attack issues. With HIV, a lot of people can justify being rude and being nasty by saying, okay, this is just a gay man's disease. No, baby, let's take it all the way back. Let's put HIV right here. Anybody can get it. This is not no gay man, no straight man, no poor person, no rich. Anybody. Once we start realizing that nothing is off the table for any of us, that's the number one thing. Because even when it comes to a rich person thinking, oh, this can't happen to me, I'm too rich. No, baby, anybody can be touched. And that's with anything in life. I think we have to realize that.
I like that. I like that.
Statement.
Yeah, thank you. This is amazing. Thank you all so much. And I just want to reiterate something you said, both of you said a few questions back when you were saying it's not by design. I think what you meant to say, it is by design.
Yes.
Right? Because it is intentional.
Yes.
It is deliberate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the other thing I want to just really invite everybody to hang around for the theological injustice conversation, because that's where I hear you all continuing to go, talking about the church and the theology, and you are absolutely spot on, and this is coming from a pastor, right, from a theologically trained pastor, and we got another one in here. It might be some more, but I know Will is one too. And I want you to, because I want you to have some hope in terms of some pastors and some preachers, not a lot, but I want you to have some hope. And the thing that is challenging, and I'm just gonna be, keep it 100, there's some of you in here right now who go to the churches that she's talking about, that are still preaching abstinence, that are still levying shame on persons who are HIV positive, that still will not allow persons who are LGBTQIA plus in your churches, or certainly not have leadership positions. Some of you activists go to those churches. That confuses me, right? And so we need to talk about that, right? So please hang around for that conversation.
Y'all want to know what blew my mind? Is I went to this sex ed training for young adults, teenagers, right? And it was held in a church. And it wasn't one of our churches. It actually was down the street. And it blew my mind that they taught that, for one, that class in the church, and that they actually teach the kids in the church. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I could never imagine that happening in a Black church. So I do want to stick around for that conversation, because I want to be hopeful, but like we said, there's so much trauma to where it's just like, oh, am I wishful thinking? So I'll stick around.
Another question? You good? Okay. Okay.
I think she answered my question when she said stick around for that second part. I have a lot of friends that actually go to churches and sit and are constantly condemned. You know, I have a friend, I told him, and actually I learned this in a Narcotics Anonymous class. There was a lesbian lady stood up and said that, because you know in Narcotics Anonymous they believe in finding your own higher power and finding God for yourself. And she stood and she said, I can't serve my mama's God because my mama God I'm going to hell. And I can't serve my mama's God because I'm condemned every day. I can't serve my mama's God because when I'm serving my mama's God, I suffer from mental illness every day. So I think that the people in our community need to find God for themselves.
Yeah.
It took me to go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and hear that and say a lot of my mental condemnation, a lot of my everyday walk, and a lot of my abuse on myself and guilt that the abuse came from was because I was serving my mama's God and I had not found God for myself. And back to the part of my friends sitting in church, and I shared this with a friend of mine, and like we're at the gay club, and my friend is saying, when he sees something, he says, "Oh, they going to hell." I'm like, we're right here together with them, you know? So you just condemned all of us? And that was from him serving his mama God. And now he sits in a church to where when the preacher doesn't have anything to talk about, quote, he picks on the punks. You know, he picks on the gay person. And, you know, when offering is down to get a roar out of the crowd, you know, if it's somebody to abuse, he instantly goes to men sleeping with men, and that arouses the crowd, and that gets more amens than real services, than preaching the word of God. So I'm going to stick around for that second part, and I think that it's important that, you know, those were some powerful words that you said when you said the church is killing us. I repeated that so many times in my head. I was like, how is that setting with me that she said that? It was so wrecking. And it was a time of reckoning for me because it is. Because when you preach abstinence and ain't nobody doing it, and you're not preaching sexual education because you know they're doing it, they're human beings. And when you say don't do it and they're constantly doing it, we're constantly having these issues. Children getting pregnant, children getting HIV, children getting STDs and STIs. It's constantly going to happen instead of preaching, okay, look, you're human. This is how to protect yourself. May God be with you, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you for letting me share that.
Real quick, I wanted to just go through these misconceptions because I know
Yes.
she went through them, but everybody may not know the answers. I can get HIV by being around people who are HIV positive? No. Mosquitoes spread HIV? No. Oral sex is just as risky when it comes to HIV. And it depends what's going on with the person's penile area and or if there's open sores in the mouth. I'm straight and don't use IV drugs, I won't get HIV. That is not true. I could tell if my partner was HIV positive. Like Kentoria said, HIV does not discriminate and does not have a look. I don't need to worry about getting HIV. Drugs will keep me well. U does equal you if the person is non-detectable. I'm HIV positive, my life is over. That is not true. HIV is now a chronic disease. Life expectancy is 25 years or older if you are in proper care. 25 years or longer, I'm sorry. I have to take dozens of pills every day. Absolutely not. They have new dosings. You also have long-acting injectables. If I'm getting treatment, I can't spread the virus only if you're undetectable. Now that I have HIV, I can't have kids. No, if you are on HIV treatment and undetectable, the chances of passing HIV to your unborn child is less than 1%. AIDS is genocide. Untrue.
Thank you so very much. And one last question. As we all have been talking about, oftentimes trauma that comes from faith communities, Black faith communities, what role do you see Black faith communities having in the work of medical justice? But then also that follow-up is, does your organization have a faith component for churches to partner with in the work?
Okay, so when last question about our organization, I would say I could speak to me and the people that I work alongside. We're trying. That's why we're in this room right now.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. All right, and in just a few moments, we will go to our Why Does It Matter community justice. So we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Yes. Please refresh yourself.
Drinks and food at the back if you like. And then the other scenario is that lunch is coming around the 11:30 mark. We just want y'all to know that lunch is on the way. I don't know yet. Come on.